talking today with Mark Titus, who has made 2 amazing films about salmon, and he's going to talk about his films and his work with salmon and why salmon are so important. What's the wisdom that salmon can bring us? So yeah, we're just walking down to Piper's Creek here in Seattle. So this is Mark Titus. Welcome, Mark.
This is a really special place. Piper Creek here in Carkey Park in North Seattle has a small hatchery system here. And for me, this place is really special because every year I bring my a bunch of hassle of my 10 nieces and nephews here to come see the salmon come up and return up into this little creek.
Yeah.
In this, urban setting, and it's just a miracle. They absolutely love it, and it's a huge first deep dive for kids.
And Mark, what is it that salmon brings as far as wisdom to you in your life? How has it shaped your life?
I guess it starts pretty early on. I grew up here. My dad really taught me how to love wild things and wild places by going out and fishing, and so I caught my first king salmon when I was 2 years old with him.
Gosh.
As I got older, and I really started learning about their life cycle and what they do for us, salmon teach us how to live for something greater than ourselves because they are the ultimate example of sacrifice for something bigger. They literally give their lives, their last ounce of energy, of life force, to create new life, both as they're spawning progeny, their little ones, but also 137 different creatures in every riparian system that we're talking about: wolves and bears and otters and minks and eagles and us and these trees. They feed the trees. They literally have the nitrogen from the sea soaking up into these systems. If that's not wondrous, I don't know what is.
Yeah.
When I started The Breach, I was making commercials and brand films for, big players here in the region like Amazon and Microsoft and Starbucks and folks like that. And that was really good work, and I was grateful for it. But there was really something missing. I wasn't, feeling my soul's calling. And so one day, on a way to a commercial shoot down in California, I was reading this book called Mountain in the Clouds by Bruce Brown. And I ran across the name of an attorney here in Seattle that our family knows, and it just ignited this little synapse of, oh my God, that's Russ Bush. He's got stage 4 brain cancer. He's worked his entire life, 40 years, on freeing the Elwha River from 2 salmon blocking dams. I have to go start interviewing him now. And so that was on a Friday. I came home. On Tuesday, I did my first interview with Russ. And Russ subsequently I did 3 interviews with him before he passed, and he was able to see these dams, these salmon blocking dams, come out of the Elwha River with his own eyes.
Wow.
So for me, what had been a fascination as a young man growing up fishing here with my dad and family, and then into my college years, I worked in a Bristol Bay sockeye salmon processor for 3 summers. And then in my 20s, I worked as a wilderness fishing guide in Southeast Alaska in the Tongass National Forest. All of that really developed a deep love and reverence for salmon, but moving into making a film, my first film, The Breach, about them, it matriculated into something that allowed me to see just how wide a reach they have and how many people and things salmon touch.
What can people do to protect the salmon? And what is your vision for the future with salmon? What is it that we need to be focusing on to protect the species?
And as salmon became a commodity, there were so many fish here that they would literally shovel them off the docks in Bellingham with a backhoe because they couldn't can them fast enough. That is not the case here anymore. When we're at a place like Piper's Creek at Carkey Park, we know that the little trickle of salmon that are returning here are but a pittance of what once was. So where do we go from here? How do we save what's left? and how do we restore what we need to restore to bring salmon back. First thing is protect the best. That means identify the places that are the last strongholds of wild salmon and protect them, starting with Bristol Bay, Alaska. It is the last fully intact wild salmon system on Earth. That's why I've devoted 2 films to telling the story of Bristol Bay, both the breach and the wild. The wild being my most recent film, and its entirety was about Bristol Bay. The second part about this is restoring the rest. And that means taking a look at what we've done to our salmon habitat throughout the Pacific Northwest, throughout the entirety of Salmon Nation for that matter, and Salmon Nation being defined as Northern California clear up to the top of Alaska. And look at the systems that we have altered to the detriment of wild salmon and see how best we can restore those. On my list, the most imperative thing is to remove the lower 4 Snake River dams. That is blocking 5,500 square miles of pristine salmon habitat at elevation, which would mean that this water would be cold, which is exactly what salmon need in order to spawn healthy babies. You look at the systems that we've developed in urban areas here like Seattle and see how we can restore those systems to the benefit of wild salmon and ourselves, honestly, because as wild salmon go, so do we. And we've kind of learned that the hard way. We're now trying to make up for lost time, and we need to figure out how to build where it's appropriate for wild salmon systems, try as best as we can to let rivers meander, find other systems that are blocked, possibly the Skagit, that's in contention right now, we're talking about that, and restore habitat back to its original way of winding way that allows salmon to return there and spawn with clean, clear, cold water.
Well, thank you so much for your work, Mark. And what if other people want to participate or support your work? Where do they go?
Thank you so much for having me today, Annie. It's such a gift to connect with you and to connect with your audience. I've worked hard here for the last couple of years to try to create a consolidated place for people to take action and get involved. And that's a company that I created called Ava's Wild, and it's just avaswild.com. That's the word save spelled backwards. And both the breach and the wild are available to rent or buy on that platform. And you can buy wild salmon from Bristol Bay. You can get a subscription, it's delivered to your house, and a portion of every single transaction, whether it's getting the film or salmon or any other cool stuff on there, goes directly back to Bristol Bay to lift up its communities and keep the fishery sustainable.
Just in this couple inches of water.